Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to another Despwns review. Thank you to everyone who watched my past reviews on Destiny and Dishonored, and thanks to this user here, today I will be reviewing Pokemon Alpha Sapphire and Omega Ruby, which is a remake of the Game Boy Advance classics Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire for the 3DS. So as a huge Pokemon fan since Blue, I can honestly say that Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire were my favorite games to have ever come out in the Pokemon franchise. It just looked so fucking awesome, and the new Pokemon at that point weren't complete shit, like, oh, let's just put some googly eyes on a spinal cord and call it Spinosaurus. It's really funny. Not to mention they introduced secret bases in that game where you could have your own personal hangout spot in like some trees or a cave. It was fucking sick. Nathan and I would literally during our 7th grade school recess go into the school bathrooms and trade Pokemon with each other. It was a lot less gay than it sounds. So now with the new Pokemon Alpha Sapphire and Omega Ruby, does it hold up to the originals? Is it different enough from the originals to even play? But before all that, the story of Pokemon Alpha Sapphire and Omega Ruby starts how pretty much every other Pokemon game has ever started. You're a kid moving into a new town that only has 3 buildings in it, yet there are other people living there that I guess are homeless? And one of the people that you move in next to is your rival for the rest of the game, and the other one just so happens to conveniently be a Pokemon professor that hooks you up with your first Pokemon. So the games definitely don't win any points for originality, but they definitely win that nostalgia factor point. After moving in and getting your Pokemon, you set out into the world of Hoenn to become the world's best Pokemon trainer and to beat the Elite Four, but not without being pursued and stalked by the villainous Team Aqua in Alpha Sapphire, who wants everyone to be more hydrated and drink more water, I guess, and the villainous Team Magma, who are just bitches. So if you aren't familiar with the Pokemon games, basically it's a turn-based RPG game using animals that you trap in tiny little balls to fight each other to the death with, using moves they learn as they level up in the game to kick other Pokemon's enslaved assholes. You find these Pokemon by running around throughout the game in various areas from caves and underwater to tall grass and volcanoes, with each area harboring unique Pokemon that you couldn't really get anywhere else. But I'm pretty sure everyone knows what the fuck Pokemon is, so on to what really matters. Is Pokemon Sapphire and Omega Ruby worth buying? Graphically, both games are absolutely a huge upgrade from the original Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, obviously being on the 3DS platform, with beautiful new versions of each city, each character, each Pokemon, which makes it feel almost like a completely different experience, but in a good way. The 3D aspect of the game I found didn't really add a ton of excitement to the overall gameplay, as most parts of the game are not in 3D but rather just the battle sequences, so a lot of the times you'll just have the 3D effect off without really noticing any significant differences. Alpha Sapphire and Omega Ruby also add Mega Evolutions to the game, which adds some more battle options, but not honestly a huge difference. If you aren't familiar how the Mega Evolution thing works, basically you give your Pokemon a stone to hold while it's in battle, and in battle only, it can turn into a really fucking cool version of that Pokemon. But as I said, only during battle, and at the end of it, it just transforms back into the fucking lame version. So most of the time I would just Mega Evolve my dudes just because they look cooler rather than doing anything really significantly awesome in battle, which is actually a bit disappointing. You know, I was kind of expecting once my Pokemon Mega Evolved that he'd have a different set of moves, that instead of like Surf and Tackle, it was Tsunami and fucking Butt Rape. But nope, no Butt Rape. Ruby and Sapphire also take some better elements from Pokemon X and Y by adding the Pokénav to the second screen of the 3DS, with Pokemon Ami, Super Training, and that other one that I don't fucking ever use. It also adds a new feature to the Pokénav that is called the DexNav, which allows you to sneak up on some Pokemon while they're poking up out of the grass and allow you to see what it is. And actually most of the rarest Pokemon in the game are actually achieved by doing this and not doing, you know, the traditional just running around in circles trying to find the rare Pokemon. But I actually found the DexNav really cool and different because it adds this really cool factor of you having to sneak up and try to find those rare Pokemon. But not only that, but it also tells you when you've caught all the Pokemon in a certain area, which is something that older Pokemon games never did. Like, you would just have to run around or Google and look up on Wikipedia whether or not you caught all the Pokemon in that area. But now, thanks to the DexNav, that is totally obsolete. So, fuck yes. One of the best things about Pokemon Alpha Sapphire and Omega Ruby to me is actually its nostalgia factor. I'll just carry on like none of you guys have played the original Ruby and Sapphire, but if you have, you are in for a fuck ton of feels. The game will lick you right in the feels, and it's awesome. This game will bend your feels over a table and do the nasty with it. For seriously. From the intro screen to the original compositions of the original music from the original games, everything about it made me giggle like a deranged, mentally unstable clown high on marijuana. Another really great thing about this game is that eventually you'll get an item called the Eon Flute, which allows you to fly around the map of Halloween and find areas that you couldn't get to by walking. It's very Ni no Kuni being able to fly around the map like that, but it is something that I've always wanted in a Pokemon game, and they definitely executed it really, really awesomely. Also, if you're one of those people that likes to challenge the Elite Four multiple times, this game does something that Pokemon fans have been asking for fucking eternity, and that is upping the difficulty after every time you beat them. Finally! Fuck! Yes, and no more being level 80 and barely tapping a Pokemon with its nutsack and having it just die. It actually gets harder as your Pokemon level now. As awesome as the game was though, there were some cons about the game that I couldn't just overlook. One of them that only I would mention is the menu screens and the battle screens look so fucking dumb. It seriously took me so long to get over them. I don't know why it fucking bothered me so much, but I was like, God, that looks dumb. Another con at the end of the game is that at the end of the game, you don't have a lot of shit to do except for catch new Pokemon. Basically, after you beat the Elite Four, there's another storyline that allows you to catch Deoxys and Rayquaza, but then past that, nothing. Which is kind of shitty because, you know, you want to keep playing the game, but you can't find a reason, or I couldn't find a reason to keep playing it when there's fucking absolutely nothing to do. Also, a lot of people will argue that Halloween is made up of way too much fucking water, and you'll find yourself just spending way too much time on water, or beneath water, or near water. But honestly, I didn't even notice that at all, so I think maybe people are just trying to fucking make up reasons to bitch about the game. Also, a lot of people will argue that there are a lot of unnecessary HMs in the game, which are basically moves that you have to teach your Pokemon in order to continue in the game, and I definitely agree. Alpha Sapphire and Omega Ruby have 8 HMs in comparison to only 5 in Pokemon X and Y, and it's definitely an obese bitch to have to keep one lame-ass Pokemon in your party just because he's the only one that can use Strength. Plus, I don't get, you get Rock Smash, why would you need Strength too? So here's your options. You can fucking smash a rock, or you can aimlessly push it throughout a cave. Which one sounds better? But it's also not so bad that you're just like, fuck this, I'm not playing. It's just a minor inconvenience. With that said though, Pokemon Alpha Sapphire and Omega Ruby are definitely welcome additions to the 3DS, being in my opinion some of the best games that you can get for the 3DS, which is definitely making the 3DS more desirable. But it is for these reasons that I'm giving Pokemon Alpha Sapphire and Omega Ruby an 8.9 out of 10. Definitely play it if you love turn-based RPG games, you will definitely not be disappointed. Unless you hate Pokemon. If you don't love animal cruelty and capturing tiny animals in tiny little balls, make sure to leave in the comments down below a game that you want to see me review, and it might be picked to be in the next Despwns review. Woo! With that guys, I love you all, and I will see you next time.